You're listening to Theater and College Hoops. I am Subbi. As always, my trusty, reliable co-host Taylor is alongside me. We're brought to you by Belly Up Media. Go download, subscribe, rate, and review us on whichever device it is that you use. Your college hooper of the day, I'm going with Kay Felder out of Oakland. Now, probably a not so subtle Easter egg as to what I'm going to be talking about towards the end of this episode and not so mid, but Kay Felder deserves a shout out. Oakland will get their shout out. I think Kay Felder was also on the Cavs at one point. I don't know if he crossed paths with LeBron James at all, but Kay Felder was one of the most electric players in the mid-major ranks. Small, diminutive guy who would score at will. Truly one of the best scorers we've seen the last 10 or so years. So Kay Felder, he is your college hooper of the day. Check out the website at theaterandcollegehoops.com and make sure to follow me at CBB Theater to find out where the theat is. You should also follow Taylor at Taylor Damel. Let's open the curtains. TD, welcome back to you and to our listeners, our theater goers. This might be a half-assed performance from my end, man. I'm sick. I'm tired. I'm still bloated and drunk from Thanksgiving. So I just want to put that out there that this might be a very half-assed, like Jordan Poole type of effort on the Wizards.
Would you say so? Monday after New Year's is the worst day of the year, right? That's what Monday after the Super Bowl is the worst day of the year. Is the Monday after Thanksgiving break? It's like second, top three worst days of the year, perhaps.
I think it's top three. So if we're talking strictly Mondays, yeah, it is top three. Because like you said, you basically forget that you're employed, right?
Hey, I sold the house. The house. I don't know about you regular folk, but I sold the house this weekend. So
yeah, I guess you don't count. You're not a cube rat like us. You're basically done halfway through Wednesday up until the wee hours of Sunday night when you're just trying to squeeze the last bit of toothpaste out of the weekend.
Yeah, my problem is that, let me just say you people then, since we're already defining me as someone different, just because you people have all 4 days off, which means me people have to have some on time then, because you always get that inevitable text. Because, people kind of start drinking, or like a lot of people take off Wednesday early, right? And just kind of prep for the day. Thanksgiving's always off. But then by like Friday afternoon, you've now spent like 48 consecutive hours with your family for a lot of folks. And I always inevitably get those texts. Yeah, man. So we do have some time to look this weekend if you got some time, and of course I have to have the time. So you can always tell when everyone hits their like family wall is when I get the text of like, hey, so our schedule's actually a little more free than we thought it was going to be. We got to get out of the house for 2 hours and do something. So me people have to react to that, but that's okay. That's how we pay the bills here in the Damel household. That's what it's means to an end there.
Well, the world needs both of our parties, and it's so funny you bring up family time. So this weekend was great. I enjoyed every last second of it. I had 2 toddlers running around, my sister-in-law with her husband. That was great. But don't you find that people sometimes when they're approaching a holiday, and I do this, I know I do this with my immediate family. I'll be like, oh, I can't do anything Saturday because it's Thanksgiving weekend. But they bite off a little bit more than they can chew. And like you said, by like mid-Friday, you're sitting there and you're saying to yourself, how am I going to make it to the end of Sunday? And so, yeah, maybe you are a lifeline for some folks, Taylor, that may be in the market or may just want to see some houses and go to an open house. I don't know. But you are someone's lifeline for sure.
Oh, yeah. I mean, on more than one occasion, I have definitely, let's say, how do I put this? I've thrown that life preserver out to folks who I knew that they wanted to go look at houses simply because they just needed something to do and just be away. And I know that in the back of my mind, and they even more than say, hey, yeah, well, but you can't say no. Like, you can't say go F yourselves and go look at these houses with another realtor. Like, that's not going to work for me. So yeah, there's definitely, I just did that like 2 weeks ago when some folks were in town for like 5 or 6 days staying at like the in-laws house. And they're like, yeah, I guess we could look at some places. And I'm like, ugh, this is going to be a waste. We're not buying any of these houses, but sometimes you just got to do that. It's just people helping people. So you know that.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta run your offense, even if you're down 30 with 2 minutes to go in the game, and you got the backups in. You got to run it like you would if it was a regular game or if it was a
100%.
competitive game, right?
Yeah, getting the reps
We
in. It's getting the reps in. Yeah.
especially at this time. Can I also say one other thing? It's just such bullshit being sick. The general idea of being sick, like God or whatever you believe in, whoever created us, just I don't want to say it's a half-ass job, but it's kind of like a three-quarters job. I mean, we got people with allergies that they can't figure it out. We got people that, yeah, they get sick and the common cold puts me on my ass. And I'm one of those guys. I'm one of those guys where I understand that my wife is stronger mentally and physically than me. But there's also a small part of me, Taylor, that's like, well, maybe I do have it worse than everyone else. And yeah, that is a defeatist attitude. But there's a small part of me goes into my mind. But Taylor, the human body's supposed to be so perfect where like one little paper scratch completely renders you useless, or paper cut renders you useless. It's just I hate being sick. It's so stupid. Like, just work the way you're supposed to be working.
So even though I was sick maybe month ago on this program, I am rarely, if ever, sick. Maybe like a once a year for a couple days maximum thing. My wife is the exact opposite. She has allergies at like 6 different times of the year. Like, she has celiac disease just as a general sense, so she can't, even if like a puff of wheat blows across her brow, like then we're toast. Now we have, of course, the daughter, so we've got, pregnancy or post-pregnancy stuff. So yeah, no, for you, Rachel is the strong one. For me, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back here. I'm just saying that I am fortunate that I do not have the allergies, the whatever. That has nothing to do with me and my mental toughness. It's just naturally like I don't have any of these allergies and stuff like that. So I consider myself very fortunate.
It's pretty few and far between that I get sick, but when I get sick, it's either me being a huge softy, or I am like the sickest. I'm the person with the worst common cold in the entire country. It's probably the former, but we'll power through this. Enough woe is me. We had a really nice slate of hoops this past weekend. I know we didn't come to you last Friday as we usually do, but it was Thanksgiving. We record on Thursdays. And on Thanksgiving, Taylor, we contributed to apparently what was the most viewed college basketball game in 15 years between Michigan State and Arizona. We can talk about whatever you want from the game. But I do want to start first, Taylor, about that stat because I'm a little stunned by it. I'm over here trying to lead the charge and be a like my sport kind of guy when people are watching a Super Bowl rematch between the Eagles and the Chiefs, and I'm tweeting about like Robert Morris or something like that. But we had Michigan State and Arizona with an all-time viewing record on Thanksgiving when there's football going on. Tell me your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, first off, let me also say this last weekend was one of the great regular season sports weekends of my life. And that's 100% accuracy. Packers, ever since you said, yeah, our football team sucks, the Packers are sucked like collectively, you and I. Packers look all right. We're
Yeah,
back in the
you're
mix.
taking you can take that. Go ahead. We
Control
look
our
great
own.
too, by the way, in
Uh,
in terms of what we're looking for and looking to
yeah,
achieve.
it's true. How much did Bill pay for that kicker to miss that field goal kick? Anyway, so
Elements.
yeah. Arizona, of course, beats Michigan State, and then Arizona beats the absolute shit out of ASU in football here this last weekend. So, especially this Thursday, we went Packers, controlling the Lions, and then straight up, not even having to move, not even have to hit a button on my remote, straight into Arizona, Michigan State. The rare U of A Packers combo really worked well for me. But number of factors here in this Arizona Michigan State game that probably caused it to be have so much viewership. Part of it is because yes, it was after the first football game, so I'm sure that was a factor. The Cowboys Red Commanders game sucked. I mean, for lack of a better phrase, everyone could have fallen asleep because of Jack Harlow's halftime show, and maybe they just hadn't changed the channel by the time they woke back up. That was an awful halftime show, by the way.
So I heard he was on a very small
It's like someone just rolled
stage.
out. It's like someone rolled out, like tied together, sewed together like 15 tablecloths, and that was like all they put down. Anyway, but the biggest factor is that you got two massive college basketball brands playing at a prime time day that everybody has off, and I think that if you are, I mean, you and I have this discussion all the time, and I'm always the guy that's hanging the banner of that Arizona is a much bigger basketball brand than what I think a lot of people realize that it is. Now I can actually say that, hey, yeah, nobody even watches your school. Like, what are you talking about? Of course, we are the most watched game of all time. But it is wild to me that it is the most watched college basketball game on Fox ever. And of course, like you said, the largest viewership of any college basketball game in the last 15 years, which means more than every single one of Duke, North Carolina's games that were regular season games, more than any Indiana, Purdue, more than any UCLA, U of A games. So um, and it helped that it was an awesome game. So two great teams, one obviously a little better than the other, just given what this season has seen so far. But it was, again, much like the Duke game for Arizona in a lot of ways, exactly what you're looking for from a college basketball game. Arizona played very well in the first half. Michigan State made a push, as you would expect an Izzo team to do, right out of halftime. Essentially went on, I think, what was a 9-2 run, I think, right after the break, which pretty much evened it up. And in fact, Michigan State took the lead with about 3 or 4 minutes left for the first time, and then Arizona pushed through at the end. But I think that was part of it. Is some people may have left the TV on that channel after the Packers-Lions game, but then the fact that it was like, oh, you got the number 3 team, like this is a good basketball game. The other game was kind of a blowout anyway, football game. And so by the time this game ended, it was halftime of the other game. So I could see how maybe if you weren't intentionally trying to watch this game, you were maybe like, oh, well, we're sports fans. This is a good game. The other game doesn't start for a little bit. It's now a blowout already. So a combination of factors. Thanksgiving was a big factor. So I'm not going to sit here and act like if this game was on like a Tuesday, it was going to get 5.25 million people. But I think it still would have gotten a pretty significant viewership, just given all the reasons I just said.
Yeah, I think all the reasons you did just say are correct. I think you missed out one little point, and it's very minute, and maybe you did say it, but uh, obviously the Arizona brand is incredibly strong, and they contributed to the viewership numbers. But it also helped that Michigan State, a Michigan fan base, was coming off of their Lions loss, maybe looking for
Correct.
some.
Yep.
So
Yep.
to your point about it being on the same channel, totally get all that. But this was a big day for Michiganders, okay? And actually they had a rough weekend, I think, through it all. So, well, with the exception of the Wolverines. Maybe I'm talking strictly Michigan State fans that overlap with Lions fans that also overlap with just Michigan State. So this was a great game though, Taylor, like you mentioned, and a very exciting game, a competitive game, and one in which you were hoping to see takeaways for me. And this is I'm gonna give you a pat on the back here, T. Kyle and Boswell, man, again, showing out and showing up. Everyone on the Umar Ballo train, he's been fine. Ballo's been fine, but Kyle and Boswell again stepping up to the plate and being a grown up adult. The one thing I think we're actually witnessing, Taylor, though, and maybe it's too early because they were winning a ton of games last year at this juncture, but I never had the same feeling. I never had the same feeling last year as I do this year with guys like Keyshawn Johnson and Caleb Love, who, when they make big plays, I don't think it's by accident. Like when Azuolas Tubelis was making big plays, I was kind of like the Russell Westbrook meme when he's eating in the corner. He's like, yeah, I guess I'll take it, like secretively. But I don't know if that necessarily translates towards the end of the year. Courtney Ramey, something similar. This year, though, when I see Keyshawn Johnson and Caleb Love make big time plays, I say that's a result of Keyshawn Johnson going through wars and being at a winning program like SDSU. I say that's a result of Caleb Love backpacking one of the greatest, if not the greatest college basketball program in history to a win over their arch rivals. I think those are products of the experiences that they've had. And that's what I'm all about, right? So when I see a Caleb Love, who, by the way, is basically Michael Jordan when the clock is winding down in the first half, Like if I'm watching film and I'm an opposing coach, get the ball out of his hands. If Arizona has the ball clock winding down, because he's going to shoot and he's probably going to make it. That's twice now against Duke and now Michigan State. But what I'm seeing with this team, and Tommy Lloyd said it, he's, we got dogs, we got winners. He's probably said it a couple times in the past when they didn't really have dogs or winners. Sorry, Tommy, I love you, but you don't necessarily, or they didn't have the resume where I could point and say, yeah, they are a dog. Yeah, they are a winner. I can see that now with these two guys, especially leading the way.
Yeah, no, another thing that I will point out, just because I had it pulled up and didn't say earlier, um, Michigan State played on Thanksgiving last year too against Alabama. So I don't think this was only a Thanksgiving thing. Obviously, it being on the same channel was significant, but I went back and looked at what last year's Thanksgiving slate was. You had Wisconsin at Kansas, you had Duke, Oregon State, Alabama, Michigan State, UConn, Oregon, so it wasn't just like this was the only Thanksgiving that's ever had good games on before. So I do want to point that out. But no, I mean, I think with this Arizona team specifically, Caleb Love, Keshad Johnson, these are guys that just you can count on them. I had been a little hard on Jade Bradley earlier in this year too. He hit what was maybe the biggest shot of this game and has played really well ever since I gave him a little, not a hard time, but said, hey, we need a little more out of him. And he quickly responded to that. Kylan Boswell in the first half of that game looked like the best guard in America in the first half. And that's not even a hyperbole. Like he didn't play quite as well in the second half, but obviously Kolek and people like that are the actual best guards in the country, but he looked every bit of that in the first half. And Michigan State did scare me a little bit. They hit a couple threes, and you and I texted about it in the week when I'm like, oh, this is the game that Michigan State finally figures out how to shoot. Fortunately, they did not. Again, it's not. I guess I'm still not worried about Michigan State. Maybe I am worried. Not after this game, but it's just tough that if this game was standalone, because they clearly looked the part in this game. It's just kind of funny that we have this discussion about them every year at the same time. Couple losses to somebody in like November and December, and they still can't shoot though. I guess is where I'm going with this. It's like they're still not shooting the ball very well, and so we still need to get that figured out. Before conference play starts, because conference play starts now in less than a month.
Yeah. So the shooting, that's what we mentioned. We said it's concerning. But for our narratives, for mine personally, I gave you love for Kylan Boswell. I'm going to take love again for Tyson Walker, which wasn't going out on a limb, calling him Big Ten Player of the Year. But I think that is close to solidified. Tyson Walker is the best player by far in big time spots in big time games. Like Tyson Walker was one of the sole reasons why that was a game. And also Jaden Akins. Jaden Akins actually started pissing me off because I was like, come on, Jaden Akins, you're going to be hitting these banked fadeaways. But credit to him. But Tyson Walker looks great. Michigan State, you're going to be just fine. However, they're just not the Final Four contender right now that we may have thought that they were. And it's still a little too early to write them off as that, but I think they were a little overvalued in the preseason.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. We're not writing anybody off in November, but I'm certainly couldn't be less impressed maybe with one single team so far through the year that would have been someone that we would have picked to the Final Four in the preseason. They are currently at least playing a get right game as we speak. I think they're up by like 900 against Georgia Southern. So they needed one of those games to finally put one away. Obviously, though, if you look at the other teams in college basketball that we were able to watch this last weekend, and you look at them compared to Michigan State, you're only going to be more impressed with everybody else and less impressed by Michigan State. If you look at the, Kansas, Tennessee, all these games at the Maui Invitational, Marquette. Look at Marquette; they're dope. A lot more teams. I mean, coming away with a lot more impressive views of teams, even in losses. Should even UCLA only lost. Does UCLA look better than Michigan State this year? I would say yes so far. So I think I'm coming away with a lot more better impressions of other teams that were worse than Michigan State to start the year. And, if they would have beat Arizona, I think we could have said, okay, yeah, all right, whatever, overreaction. But you've now got, I know that all of their losses are to teams that are ranked now. 2 of them are ranked in the top 5. I get that. But at some point you don't get credit for losing to good teams, right? Like you have to win some of these games. This isn't an SEC bad or good loss type of deal. So for them, I just had their schedule pulled up here, and they've have Wisconsin. Wisconsin's next week, so that already starts for them in Big Ten play, and then they have Baylor there on December 16th, which is going to be pretty much their last opportunity at an out of conference win of any stature. So when it comes to seeding, that's going to be the issue, right?
Yeah.
If you don't
Well,
beat, if you don't beat that Baylor team, who's currently ranked number 9, you're going to go into Selection Sunday, and they're going to look at your out of conference schedule and go like, "Great, so you played all these teams, but you didn't beat any of them."
yeah. The main question is AJ Hogard for me. Shooting might turn around. There's still time for it to potentially turn around, although I don't necessarily believe it will. We've seen shooting turn around, let's say, in the course of the turn of the calendar, uh, in 2024. But AJ Hogard has not played well this season, Taylor. And I like AJ Hogard. He was one of my foxhole guys last year, point guard wise, with Marquise Noel and DeJuan Harris. But AJ Hogard, and I like him because he talked a big game and usually he could back it up. This season, he said he's coming in with a chip on his shoulder, basically by saying all the media or local media, maybe national media, wrote him off. And I don't even know if that's true. But they're being proven right now, AJ, right now, because you have not played well at all. And I thought this was going to be a great backcourt between him and Tyson Walker. And only one of them is really carrying that load right now. So AJ Hogard, he's the most concerning part of this whole fixture. Okay. Because we saw contributions with Jaden Akins. We saw contributions with a few of the other personnel and players. And I know what I'm going to get with Tyson Walker. I know what I'm going to get with Tom Izzo. What am I going to get with AJ Hogard? Because you know what we love, right, Taylor? It's guard play in March. Stop it. I won't say it starts and stops with him because that's Tyson Walker, but it could certainly stop with him. It could absolutely stop Michigan State with AJ Hogard based on his performance. So that's the one area I'm very much keen on.
Yeah, he's averaging 9 points and 4 assists this year, 2 turnovers a game, which isn't too bad, but he's only shooting 31% from the field and 14% from 3. There's only one dude on the entire Michigan State roster who's shooting better than 30% from 3, and that's Tyson Walker, who's shooting 30.4%. You do have Trey Holloman, who I think he's shooting at 50%, but I think that's on
I mean, yeah, I don't think I've ever seen Trey Holloman
two
shooting.
shots. Yeah, right. So we're not going to count that. But yeah, Tyson Walker is the only guy in the whole team that's shooting above 30% from 3, and he's shooting 30.4. You can't have a starting backcourt in Big Ten play, and I'm going to count Jaden Akins in this as well, who are shooting 30, 29, and 14% from 3. That's not going to win you a lot of games in the Big Ten, because as rough and tumble as the Big Ten is, you got to have someone to spread the floor a little bit so everything doesn't get so clogged up in the middle. And if you can leave all 3 of these guys open, Michigan State's not good enough down low compared to some of these other teams in the Big Ten for them to do anything. So just like we said, even on the last 2 of the last 3 episodes, is we got to have some kind of offensive change here at Michigan State. And currently behind me, as the TV is on, they are playing well, but again, it's against a Georgia Southern, so that's not really going to tell us anything.
Who knows? Maybe Jaden Akins will emerge and take the mantle as number 2 because he had a great game against Arizona.
Soup, there is one other team that actually maybe is a little more disappointing this year than Michigan State so far. Who's that?
Is it USC?
It's USC, Soup.
Hey,
It's
nice
USC.
segue.
Thank you.
Nice segue there. That's brilliant. Yeah, USC loses to Oklahoma. I won't say they are as disappointing as Michigan State, but because I think, and this might be a national media thing versus West Coast, everyone was saying Michigan State is a Final Four contender, and they still could be. There's time for it to turn it around. But I think a lot of people on the West Coast were also saying that USC could challenge or win the Pac-12 title. I think Rothstein had tweeted multiple times over the offseason that the Pac-12 runs through the Galen Center. USC loses to Oklahoma. This was a couple games after they lost to UC Irvine. I'm not panicking about USC, mostly because Collier and Boogie will figure it out. And I'm going to give Collier a little bit more time. But are you concerned about them?
I mean, I would be at this point. if their guard play is awesome, don't get me wrong. Boogie Ellis and Isaiah Collier have both played very well. Boogie's averaging 20, and Isaiah Collier is averaging 18. The problem is with Collier specifically is this guy's averaging 5+ turnovers a game, and that's certainly not going to work. So that's a big issue for them is the turnover issue. They're averaging about 15 a game. They're shooting the ball decently well from deep, but this team outside of their guards is just nothing. Their three guards average 20, 18, and 15 a game, and nobody else on the team averages more than 6.
Is Vince Iwuchukwu back, or is this just the Josh Morgan show?
He's played 4 of the games this year. He played 14 minutes against Oklahoma. So yeah, I mean, talking about someone who was probably supposed to be a little better than he's played so far. He's only shooting 33% from the field. Again, not going to work for a big guy, but Collier is playing well. He gets if he can figure the turnover bug out, that's going to be huge for this team. Boogie Ellis really can't be playing much better. He's shooting 45% from the field, 40% from 3, only turning the ball over a time and a half a game and averaging over 20 points a game. So he's certainly not the issue, but they don't got a lot on this team outside of their starting guards. Kobe Johnson, like I said, is that third guy, and they're averaging 15. So the problem will be for them, and as we saw against Irvine, I believe was that the game that Collier fouled out?
I don't know if he fouled out.
But... He fouled out of a game so far this year. So that's going to be a big issue. Obviously, I know this is only he's only played 6 college basketball games, so I understand that. But if you've only got 3 guys essentially that are running this entire team, one of them's turned the ball over 5 times, and if one of them happens to foul out or has an off night shooting wise, this is what you're going to get. You're going to get losses to UC Irvine and to Oklahoma. So I mean, we talked about this in our Pac-12 preview show. I didn't quite think that there was any shot that I said that Arizona was going to win this conference by multiple games. I think that if we were going to do the preview show today, I think that would be probably a pretty accurate or common preview, because I don't see this USC team giving Arizona a run. Maybe in a game they play together, but not across a 20-game slate will they be better than Arizona. That's for sure. UCLA is still going to take some time, although I have been impressed with UCLA so far this year. Not that this is supposed to be completely about the Pac-12, but Colorado has been unimpressive as well, and we both picked them to be good.
But all right, they only have 1 loss.
I think they have 2 losses, don't they?
Colorado?
Maybe they only have 1 loss, but they're already unranked.
They're 5-1.
Okay, they're already unranked though. They're not even the best team in Colorado. Let's put it that way.
That could be true.
Which we'll talk about later. But Arizona's the only team ranked in the Pac-12 already. Like, just typical Pac-12 bullshit that I'm so tired of. It's like, oh yeah, USC, they're an outside shot of the Final Four. 3 weeks into the season, it's like, never mind. That was fun. Whatever. They suck just like everybody else in the Pac-12 does. So I am a little concerned about USC. It's troubling, to say the least. They have at least a couple opportunities at some bigger wins to maybe get back a little bit. They do play Gonzaga this weekend. So they're, and then they play Auburn 2 weeks from now at Auburn. So those are 2 huge games to really get them back to say, okay, is this team going to be a competitive team nationally? Are they going to compete for Pac-12 title, or are they just going to be kind of a run-of-the-mill 6 to 8 seed, whatever? Because if they can't pick up wins against either in Auburn or Gonzaga, there's just not enough high-level wins in the Pac-12 to help their seeding out.
Yeah, so I think it's still way too early to be concerned about USC. Bad loss to UC Irvine. I'm not going to argue that. But if you look around the country, a lot of teams have some bad losses under their resume. I think I'm more impressed, I suppose, with Oklahoma and the Big 12. Oklahoma's undefeated. And so I don't think it was necessary. And they lost on a buzzer beater, right? USC did. So USC is supposed to be better than Oklahoma. I understand that. And they're probably playing a little bit below what their standard is. But I think Oklahoma's been far and away better than what they've shown, right? Porter Moser finally might have a team where he can build some momentum. Now, good luck in the Big 12. And again, this is a Big 12 opponent for USC. And I think by the end of the season, it's actually going to look decent as a loss for USC. But I want to give Isaiah Collier more time to figure out the turnover situation for sure. And like you said, Boogie Ellis has been tremendous all year, and I expect that to continue. And so I think those two games, those Gonzaga and Auburn games, and honestly, the Oregon game to open up at Oregon, Pac-12 play, those are going to be critical. I think they got to go 2-1 in those spots or amongst those three games in order for them to put themselves in a very good position to either compete for a Pac-12 title, which I don't think they will, only because Arizona is so good. But I think they'll be second, and they'll be an at-large bid. And I think they will be a top 4 or 5 seed based off of the opportunities that present themselves. I just think it's still too early to make a sweeping generalization on these guys specifically, because I trust Andy Enfield. He's proven that he can win in the NCAA tournament. And right now it's just about gelling and molding some of these guys together to play well together. And I don't know how Bronny James fits into this at all. Maybe this is pie in the sky for me, and maybe it's way too far down the road. But I wouldn't be surprised if and when he's healthy, he could be an impact guy in a couple spots. Right? I'm not expecting him to be a 12-8 scorer for the second half of the season, but in some emergency situations, in some tight games, which USC will keep. I think USC is good enough to keep every single game tight. I think that's when you might be able to see some of the different roster makeup and some of the different personnel help out with Andy Enfield. But for right now, I'm glad at least, like, I can tell you that Boogie Ellis is playing very well. That's good. I trust Andy Enfield as a coach to get this team in the right direction. That's good. I've seen flashes of brilliance from Isaiah Collier, and Joshua Morgan has played pretty solid as well. So that's all really good. Isaiah Collier's making freshmen silly mistakes, potentially unbecoming of a number 1 overall pick, but it's all there. They just gotta be a little bit more polished if we're going to be talking about them as a conference champion. Right now, they're not, as a result of some of the unpolished play and also Arizona being so damn good, but they're on an all right trajectory, I think.
So I will say, in Isaiah Collier's defense, a lot of his turnovers and foul troubles have been off of him just trying to get boldly his way to the bucket and lowering his head. They changed the charge block call in college basketball this year, which seems like they change it every year in some capacity. So I will give him a little bit of a pass on that. You know, that his foul and turnover troubles have kind of gone together, which is something that is certainly fixable. The other thing is I want to talk about is Bronny James. Did you see a Bronny James fan account on Instagram today? Posted a picture of him in a Duke uniform, but the fan account is Bronny James Jr. is what the name of the fan account is. So it freaked a bunch of people out on Twitter and stuff today because it's got a blue check mark and everything, and so so it was it caused a ruckus there for a minute today, which I'm not sure what the purpose of that was, but kind of interesting.
So. Well, it's probably because people who are casual and don't follow college basketball, they're like, oh, he's in a Duke jersey, that means he's gone. Like, you can't just do that.
So, Sub, let me try this again. What jersey did they have Bronny in today?
I said Duke. Oh, look at that.
God, you're sick. I'm ill at the
I like that a lot.
Segway game today. So
you really are. You really are. Because you're asking these questions, and I'm just like, why is he asking me these questions, man?
My dog, just look at the doc. Just look at the docket on the right side of your screen, man. You know, come on, or wherever it is for you.
Hey, Duke, Arkansas, big game upcoming. T. Let me talk a little bit though. First, I want to focus my thoughts at least on Arkansas to start this off. They very well could be on a 4-game losing streak, if I'm being honest with you. Tremont Mark is questionable. I would say doubtful after a scary, scary fall in Atlantis. Hopefully he's all right. But they haven't been playing well whatsoever. They're one of their last 3. Their only win was a 3-point win against Stanford. Not very good. So when I couple that, when I take into account the travel, and when I take into account the fact that Kyle Filipowski is an absolute monster right now, who's doing everything for Duke, leading the team in points, leading the team in rebounds, steals, blocks. Tyrese Proctor is the only other person contributing as it relates to a leadership level. When I take all of that into account, injury to Mark, the fact that they're on a 4-game losing streak, I'm calling it a 4-game losing streak because beating Stanford by 3 is basically a loss. I don't see how they pull an upset. And I know it's at home. I think they're only favored, or I think they're favored. No, favored or dogs?
They're dogs. They're 5-point dogs.
Only
Hogs.
5-point dogs. Hogs,
5-point
yeah,
hogs at home. Yeah, there you go.
I like that. I don't see how they cover and or win, to be honest with you, Taylor. What do you think about this?
Well, and the problem, Duke played like just shit in the first half against Southern Indiana. I think they were losing. Was it Southern Indiana? Is that who were they playing?
It was
Yeah.
Southern Indiana.
Yeah, the Screaming Eagles. Good ball club, 1-6 so far this year, but they were losing in half in Cameron, and they obviously came back and won by like 18 or significant margin. To me, in my mind, that doesn't bode well for whoever the next opponent is, right? Because that's like Shire's going to get in there and be like, yo, okay, come on, guys. Arkansas, there were definitely some high hopes for them this year. Maybe not as good as in some past years, maybe 2 years ago specifically, but they very much underperformed, as you've noted so far this year. Did you even say who their first loss was to, by the way, of that group?
It's Greensboro.
Yeah, right. I mean, we're talking like, and Greensboro's not the worst school by any means, but when you combine,
Well, that was a true home game. That was in Bud Walton.
Right. So, yeah, if you can't even beat Greensboro at Bud Walton, how are you expecting to beat Duke? So 5 isn't a lot. They are not one of my betting picks because I may have read the schedule before this, so I didn't. I left them off my dimes. Not that my dimes performed well at all last time around, but no, I think Duke wins this one handily. Not even just because they're a better team, but because Arkansas. Let's put it this way: not just because Duke is a better team, but because Arkansas is a worse team, if that makes sense. And then Duke coming off a game that they kind of struggled in.
Well, I think also Duke is just like a fully healthy Duke versus a fully healthy Arkansas. I'm still taking Duke, especially on the road. Like Duke's shown to me and proven enough this season that they should be taken seriously, that their ceiling is a national title. And we've all mentioned that. And their only losses to now a number 2 team at home, basically by 5 points, or they had a chance to tie it towards the end. Duke's the real deal. They're nasty. And like I mentioned, Filipowski's just on a whole nother level. It's going to be interesting to see. I don't know if Trayvon Brazil is going to stick him at all, but I don't know if anyone will stick Kyle Filipowski. They're just so well-rounded. They're experienced. They're a veteran group. They're tough. Now, hopefully Arkansas can get some contribution from, like I mentioned, Brazil, but also Debo Davis, L. Ellis, who's familiar with playing the Blue Devils. So this is going to be a tough test for Arkansas, and it would shock me. I usually say it wouldn't shock me if they somehow keep it closer or they end up winning. But knowing what they've been through the last couple of weeks, and I also think that this is a small little piece of it, but the travel, right? They were just in Atlantis, Arkansas was, correct? So they come all the way back here. Duke, they were at home. They were at home for Thanksgiving, so they can just come over here. I know it's on a Wednesday, but there's a lot of contributing factors here where I just think it's one of those deals, Taylor, where the issue of looking ahead to some of these games, I'm not saying that's what Arkansas did, because they've lost to some quality opponents too. They lost to Carolina. They lost to Memphis. Those are 2 teams that I think I believe I picked as my conference champions. But when you look ahead to some of these games, like I can't wait I'm Pavloving for Duke at Bud Walton. You suddenly look back and you're like, oh, well, this isn't a must win, but if we don't win this game, we're 1-4 in our last 5. And that includes some bad losses. Now, this will be a good loss, but it's just an ugly, terrible taste because you had all the expectations in the world of entering this Duke game at home fully healthy. That's out the window. 1 or 2 losses, no. And now, because you have 3 losses, and now you're going up against a very tough opponent who smells blood in the water. So that's the issue with kind of looking ahead to these games, Taylor. You're not taking care of business. There's so many games in college basketball, but you got to take care of business.
So on a much more elevated level, on another SEC team, that's visiting another ACC team coming in on a losing streak is and to much different teams, but Tennessee goes to North Carolina as well tomorrow or tonight. And Tennessee could go be on a 3-game losing streak. Unfortunately for them, that their losses would be to Purdue, Kansas, and Duke in this, or North Carolina in this circumstance. But you certainly wouldn't have predicted in the preseason that a team like Tennessee would have lost 3 straight at any time during this season. So that's going to be another tough one for an SEC team that's trying to do something. Oh, and I should say they're Arkansas is at home. Tennessee's on the road, so I guess it's not apples to apples completely, but you know what I'm saying, where it's like, yeah, the losing streak again, when you look talking about seeding, preseason expectations, all of that is okay. Let's say that we played, 5 ranked teams in the out of conference. You'd think to yourself, okay, well, if we go 2-3, 3-2 would be good, but if you have a 3-game losing streak in there to them, in that situation, you'd be like, well, damn, maybe we aren't quite as good as anticipated. So that's another great game happening tonight coming up. Another one that I left out of my betting picks because I really couldn't decide which one of those two I wanted to take. I will say one more thing about Tennessee here, since we're on the line about them. Why they decided to take 7 consecutive threes, when they took the lead, I believe, right? They took the lead by a
Against
point
Purdue.
against Purdue, and they were playing great basketball, and they took a 3. I think they went up 64-63, and then they took 7 consecutive threes on 7 consecutive possessions to end the game on a team
That's
that
what
can't
that's what
a
3-point
team
shooting
that can't
teams do,
shoot,
Taylor.
a team that still can't shoot, unfortunately. But that made no sense to me, and it really, I know it's just one game against the number 1 team in the country, but I really want, for years, despite some of the arguments we've had on this program, for years I've been trying to say that I get Tennessee to say, like, okay, they are over that hump. But when you got Ziegler, who's still there doing the same shit, like still, and it's like, guys,
I'd say
come
it's more
on.
Vescovy.
Well,
Vescovy's the one
whatever. Yeah,
who's
they've both been there for 25 years combined, so it's like, guys, why is this the same problem in these games over and over and over again? And it was infuriating to me watching that game. So
the
I
issue.
just wanted to point that out since we were on an SEC ACC kind of kick there.
No, I appreciate it. First of all, great color scheme with Tennessee and Carolina. I hope they go.
Yeah,
I
I
hope
hope
they go
so too.
powder blues and orange.
Mhm.
Go color on color. The issue is always going to be with Tennessee. Like, can they do this? Can they put together 6 games? Hell, can they put together 4 games? Because Final Four would be the cherry on top. I know Rick Barnes has been to one, but he's supposed to get one at Tennessee, I guess. Can they do this for 4 to 6 games in the NCAA tournament? That is, I guess, to be determined. Last thing I want to mention, though, Taylor, before we get to segments, how many teams from the Carolinas is Arkansas going to schedule? Can we talk about that for a second? They've played Gardner-Webb. They've played UNC Greensboro. They played UNC. They're going to play Duke. They're playing Furman. And then they got UNC Wilmington. That's 6 teams against teams from the Carolinas.
Wow, and essentially, what is a 5-week stretch of basketball? That's 1 North Carolina per week, essentially 1.25, give or take, 1.33. Yeah, no, that is
shocked.
How does that come about? And yeah, that's kind of strange. Are there a lot of recruits from
I don't know. Yeah,
Arkansas?
like, do they usually do this? I mean, a couple of them. Well, and only one game was in Atlantis, right?
Yeah,
Against
so
the Carolina team. Yeah, I don't know.
yeah, are there a lot of L. Ellis is from Durham?
This is the type of stuff you get from Titch, by the way.
Maybe that's how they got him to transfer there. Listen, L,
What you get to
we're gonna play 5 teams from your home state. They're not gonna be in North Carolina. They're still gonna be here at our house. But yeah, I don't know. Kind of strange.
It is. But that's what you get here from Titch. All right. I don't really care about the breakdowns of Tremont Mark and his absence and things like that. I care about the scheduling. Like, why is Arkansas playing a ton of North Carolina and South Carolina teams? Very odd. All right, Taylor. I need to go make myself some soup and tea. Can we get some segments rolling here with easy layup? I'm going to let you ISO.
This is a lot of pressure. But speaking of ISO, let's start off with an easy layup of a guy that did a lot of ISOs in his college basketball career. Creighton is retiring the jersey of one of the very best college basketball players of all time, and certainly one of the best of our generation, and that's Dougie McDermott. Now, that's going to happen against Villanova on December 20th. A very apropos person to be, or team to be doing it against as well. A team that has been obviously probably the best college basketball team of the last 15 years or so. Now, we talk a lot. One of our trivia questions on many of our preview episodes this year were how many 2,000-point scorers there were in a certain conference. Doug McDermott scored 3,150 whole American points in his career. 3,000. Good enough for 5th all-time in NCAA history. That's scoring the hell out of the basketball. 3-time first-team All-American. I think we kind of forget how good of a college basketball player Doug McDermott really was. Maybe we don't, but
Taylor, we do, because this was around-ish the same time as Jimmer. Creighton isn't, I mean, I don't know. Creighton's not as small as BYU. They didn't have some crazy tournament success. I think a lot of people probably thought like, oh, this is some sort of what's the thing nowadays that kids love to say? Nepo baby. Like they were probably just like, oh, Doug McDermott's a Nepo baby. He's still in the NBA, folks. So I agree with you. There's some contributing factors as to why we may not have appreciated Doug McDermott at Creighton.
Dude, you're so hip all the time, not so mid. All
Nepo baby.
Nepo
Yeah.
baby. Jesus. How old are we? I can't even. No, I'm kidding. Really, a wonderful collegiate career for him, and rightfully, should get his number retired up there next to the likes of like Paul Silas, Kyle Korver, and the like there in Omaha. So that's my easy layup. I think maybe at the time there were people that hated Doug McDermott, but certainly a guy that I think he's a lot more well-liked than, say, like a Tyler Hansbrough, someone else who was a multiple, national player of the year type of guy. Trying to think of other national player of the years or 3-time All-Americans.
Reddick.
Totally. There's a common theme to these guys. What is it, Sub?
White guys.
Well, that's what it is. But the thing that really most underrated part of McDermott's career is the fact that he stayed all 4 years at Creighton in a pre-NIL type of deal. Now, of course, his dad was the coach, so maybe Creighton could have just paid,
so that probably is actually valid Nepo baby stuff. But the rest of it, like his on-court play, he can play for anyone in the country.
Hey, coach, would you like a $1 million raise next year for Doug to stay in school? Yeah, here's the catch. So no, that actually didn't happen because he didn't, unless something happened behind the scenes. But that's really an impressive part in the pre-NIL college basketball days. And the fact that it's a good example for, I think, a lot of college basketball players that I always use someone like, to reference an Arizona guy. I always use a guy like Solomon Hill, who just got married this last week. Shout out. A 5-star recruit who could have literally left and had the same draft position at any point after his freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior years, was a first-round draft pick, actually, funny enough, I believe. As a guy that, like, once you have a certain set of skills, it's going to translate to basketball or to the pro level. You might not be a superstar, but you're certainly not going to get kicked out of the league 2 years into your career. So it's a good example in today's world. I think that's one of the reasons why I think the NIL thing is there's certainly some bad parts about it that we're starting to see come to light. But I think keeping some of these guys in school for a little extra time, like a Hunter Dickinson, would probably be our best example in today's world of who'd be closest to a Doug McDermott in terms of, on theme here still, I guess. Another white dude who stuck around for a while, but that might translate to a longer NBA career. Still remains to be seen. But all those guys that we just talked about all had not like all-star long-term NBA career, or, all-star careers, but they certainly had extended NBA careers, more so than if they would have left probably after their freshman or sophomore years.
Yeah, I don't know and again, this is the whole purpose of hindsight being 2020. I don't know if I see Hunter Dickinson having a lengthy NBA career like a TJ McConnell or a Solo Hill or a Greg McDermott or Doug McDermott, excuse me. Because Doug McDermott has kicked around. He's played in playoff series. He's been a good contributor. I don't know if I see that with Hunter Dickinson, but
sure, he's just probably our best example we have currently of a guy who's done that.
No, I got you. But Doug McDermott deserves every hat tip and flower he gets in Omaha. Great player. One of my favorite nuggets also is that he played with Harrison Barnes in high school. That probably was a terrifying team. All right, Taylor, lane violation.
So did you see this punch that was thrown by BYU's? Let me make sure I pronounce his name correct. Atiki Ali Atiki. Did you catch this? Well, I think it was in
I'm not
Vegas.
sure I did. Oh, I did
So
against ASU.
rough weekend for ASU in a lot of ways. Lost a lot of games.
Surprised you're
Uh,
saying that's a violation.
yeah. Actually, you're right. It should be an easy layup. No, this game was in Vegas, and the strange part about it to me was that BYU was up like 30 points at this point. There's about 44 seconds left. Atiki Ali Atiki who punched Akil. Can't make that up. Akil Watson there as they kind of scrapped after a little bit of a block out, on a late rebound there. Atiki kind of swats at him a little bit and just little punch right to the grill there with nothing on the line really. Did you see, or if you go back and watch this video, you'll see that the assistant coach, while Atiki's still on the ground, comes over and stands over him and essentially goes, "What in the hell are you doing, dude?" So it's a lane violation as well because it took place in the lane, which is helpful to make this comp. But yeah, that was my lane violation of the week. Kind of a strange situation there with a guy punching another guy in the face.
ASU just getting beat up
Oh,
all over the weekend.
I hate to see it.
Tough.
Oh, did you see what came out today too? That they're in. So there was an article that came out about Arizona and some financial issues, which
Yeah.
largely has nothing to do with the athletic department. It was just one quote from like a physics teacher that suggested the athletic department do something about it. Well, and so U of A folks got a lot of shit from ASU folks here over the last week about that. Well, so happens today it comes out that ASU has like 3 years left of an athletic department, and if they don't make any more money, the whole thing's going to get like canned because their football program's the worst in the country. Their basketball is one of the worst. They're like hundreds of millions of dollars in debt because they started this D1 hockey program. So just a rough week 5 years south of me here.
Yeah. So I did see that. I don't want to. I hate that we're bringing their stink with us to the Big 12, but maybe they won't. They won't last more than 3 years. So we'll see.
I bet they will, but yeah,
Yeah,
it's kind
it'll
of
be fine. Just like everything in college
it'll get
sports,
figured out.
nothing will happen.
It was just kind of funny that it happened to come out. That was like, oh well, look at that. Look, pot meat kettle.
Yeah, nothing's gonna happen. All right, Taylor, damn will dime. So last week,
I mean, we don't have to talk about it if you don't want to.
No, we have to. We have to. I'm sorry. Let's recap real quick. You took SMU +7 against Wisconsin. That did not hit. West Virginia -9, or excuse me, you took Virginia -9 against West Virginia. That did not hit. And then Baylor beat Oregon State by 16, which is what you took. So a push. Where you're sitting at right now on the season, 5-5-2. Let's
Even money.
Yeah, we're okay. We haven't lost anything. So tell me how we can win some stuff.
All right, let's do it. So you just said one of the teams that I'm going to take, and that's Virginia. Virginia hosts Texas A&M tomorrow as 1-point favorites. Texas A&M is ranked 14th in the country, but essentially, this game is a pick 'em. I think Virginia is still, for the reason, again, like I took them last week, is that, they had a bad loss to Wisconsin, and they didn't look good against West Virginia. But I still have some higher hopes for this Virginia team than what currently appears. So I think they get it together here at home against Texas A&M. So I'm going to take them -1, essentially a pick-em game. Now, a team that has been impressive this year, maybe one that we didn't write off, certainly, but maybe we had some early concerns about because of one of their losses, and that's Villanova. They lost to Penn on November 13th. And since they lost to Penn, they've actually played some really good basketball. They have beat Memphis and North Carolina and Texas Tech and Maryland since that game. That's a pretty good stretch run of teams. Two of those teams specifically, well, one of those teams, North Carolina, being very good, but Memphis, Texas Tech, Maryland, certainly good basketball programs and teams that should or will probably make the tournament this year. So they're playing St. Joe's, and they're favored by 15 at home. So I'm going to take them by 15. St. Joe's is 0-10 in their last 10 games against Villanova. And Villanova is 7-3 against the spread in that stretch. So we're taking Nova over St. Joe's by 15. And then a team that I said kind of something bad about, and I'm going to bring up the other team I'm going to bring up again here after dimes. So it's kind of like an enigma wrapped inside of a whatever. We're going to go Colorado in the battle for Colorado at the Colorado State Rams. Now, Colorado is a 3-point dog. And as you brought up earlier, Sue, I don't think Colorado's played all that well this year, but I think Colorado State has just gone on a nice run through Feast Week. And I think Colorado this is one of those type of games that in their in-state rival, they do have to prove that they are Big Brother. So when I saw that they were the underdogs in this game, it's certainly going to be a bipartisan crowd, let's call it, because it is in state. I'm going to take Colorado as the underdog, a team we still think pretty highly of, +3. So that's Colorado +3 over Colorado State, or against Colorado State. Villanova -15 over St. Joe's, and Virginia by 1 over Texas A&M.
You salvaged the first pick with that last pick. I love Texas A&M. You know I love Wade Taylor. And Virginia just pisses me off so much. Shout out to Isaiah Wilkins. I love you. Thank you for coming on the program.
They do, and that's why I picked him, because that's why they annoy me.
Well, that's why I'm not a gambling guy. I'd be like, I can't. I feel like I need more years to do that. But I don't like Virginia. And I love Texas A&M. However, you did go and salvage it with Colorado. That's going to be a fun game, man. Fort Collins gets hyped.
There's some really good games tonight. Like I said, that North Carolina-Tennessee game, it should be a good one. Colorado State should be a good one. What was the other? There's one more that I really had my eye on. Which one was that? Was it SMU Dayton? That should be a good one as well. Which one was it? I'll get to it. Let's move on, Soup.
Well, we're going to close it out now with not so mid. Taylor, mine real quick. Oakland. Like I said at the beginning of the show, shout out to Oakland for going into the Cintas Center and beating Xavier. Sean Miller's had a little bit of issue with some non-con opponents in his first 2 seasons at Xavier. And so he's still in the process of rebuilding that program back up. Don't get it twisted. Even though we went to the Sweet 16 last year, there's still progress that I think Sean would even say needs to take place. And so they took a bit of a step back with this loss to Oakland. But Oakland, man, be on the lookout for them come tournament time. I think they should be favorites in their conference. I think they could actually win a game in the NCAA tournament. And this was proof positive. I really enjoyed that win that Oakland had in the Cintas Center, a true road game. So shout out to the old Oakland Golden Grizzlies. That is my not so mid. Taylor, how about you?
So it's a team we just talked about, Colorado State, which they're not necessarily. They are definitely not so mid, because the Mountain West is not so mid. But they did go in, win the Hall of Fame Classic. And really why I picked them is because they beat Doug McDermott's Creighton number 8 team in the country to do so. Now, of course, there were 32 Feast Week tournaments that went on here this last week. You know, you had teams like Utah State, Western Michigan. Who else was in there? Hawaii, Montana State, Bradley, Greensboro, a whole bunch of these teams that ended up winning. I think Liberty won their tournament as well. So shout out to all of the mid-major teams that won their Feast Week tournament. I think Tarleton, I know you're a big Tarleton State guy.
Billy Gillespie, baby.
Yeah,
she's still
Purdue,
there?
I'd have no idea. Purdue, Fort Wayne, big week for Purdue, both main campus and Fort Wayne. Yeah, speaking of Purdue, I have a complaint. Actually, this is very mid, if I may complain.
What is it?
I hate to talk about Arizona so much on this program, but we're going to do it anyway. So, a game you're going to, Arizona Purdue. We've noted that you're going to this game, a game that I wish I was going to. Do you know what network it's on, Sue?
Peacock, man.
Peacock. And our constant complaint about how dumb streaming services are here in the world. The potential biggest game of the college basketball season. Literally.
We're looking at 1 and 2
right now, and both teams, I don't want to say they have cakewalks, so they don't have cakewalks. Arizona still has Wisconsin to play in that amount of time as well. But yeah, just great. You wonder why that was the most watched college basketball game in 15 years. Well, yeah, because everything's on goddamn Peacock or whatever now, So yeah, so
That's
number
true.
one right now we're trending towards number one on number and versus number two, only available on Peacock. It's so dumb.
Yeah.
It's very mid, very mid.
It's been I got nothing else to add to that, Taylor. It's been a rough episode for me. So I don't want to try and even end it on something positive. It's just negative. So let the negativity flow through you. Maybe next episode will be a little bit better, but we will catch you next time here on Theater and College Hoops.